Okay, today we're going to start on Nun Aleph from Beis by the Mishnah, right on the top line. Thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. It's close to our learning. We should have a place of Mikdash immediately. We have a pasuk that we looked up before. It's Vayikra 6:13, and then again Vayikra 6:15. Here it's talking about the Karban Chavitin, the Minchas Chavitin, that's brought for two possibilities. One is at the inauguration of a Kohen. It's his first time, so he brings this. And also, it's also brought by the Kohen Gadol every day. So it says, this is the offering of Aaron and his sons, which they should offer to Hashem on the day when one of them is anointed and initiated into service, 1/10 of an ephah fine flour. The Kohen Gadol must bring such an offering daily. Half of it is offered in the morning, half is in the evening. When they're initiated into the service, they divide it in half as well. Then I'm not sure, but and we learned about how it's made in a shallow pan and it's also boiled and then it's fried. Okay, then it says, when the high priest dies, the priest who is anointed from among his sons in his place should prepare it. Okay, so we learn that the Kohen Gadol after him does the same thing. And then it says that any mincha of a Kohen goes up in smoke completely. It's not eaten. It should not be eaten. Okay, so let's take a look at this Mishnah. If immediately after the Kohen Gadol dies, they didn't appoint another Kohen. So who would bring the Minchas Chavitin? It wouldn't just be empty, right? It would be they're going to appoint a new Kohen, but they didn't do that yet. Well, Reb Shimon says Mishal Tzibur was brought by the community. It means Chumas Alishka. Everyone gave machzas a shekel. They would dip into that fund that they had, and they would bring community sacrifices. This is another community obligation. And Rabbi Yehuda says Mishal Yarshim, that it was brought from the inheritors of the Kohen Gadol. Ushleima Hisakreva. Now the word Ushleima Hisakreva is going back on everyone's opinion. That's not just Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Over here it says that usually the Kohen Gadol does half in the morning and half in the afternoon. That's not so when it's being brought by the community. They bring the whole thing. A temporary Kohen Gadol. I'm not sure. Now, when it says Chaviti Kohen Gadol, did it mean that the Kohen Gadol himself brought it, or did it mean that it was his karban that could be brought by anyone? I'm not sure. Okay, Taner Rabbanan was taught in a brisa that we start the Gemara. It says Kohen Gadol shemeis v'lo mina Kohen achar tachta. The Kohen Gadol passed away. They didn't get a chance to appoint a new Kohen. Minayin shtei minchas ikrev mishal yarshim. We start off explaining Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. From where do we know that the inheritors bring it? Talmud Laimar. So we quote the pasuk that we said. It says, "V'hakayin hamashiach tachtav mibanav yasai." The kohen that's anointed in his place from his sons, he will do it. He will perform it. See that it's done by the inheritors. Yachol yakrivena chatzayin. Maybe they should do half. Just like a regular Kohen Gadol, half in the morning, half in the evening. Amalaymar Isa says it. They should perform it. Kula v'lechatzia. That means to perform it entirely, not half of it. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, that's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Rabbi Yehuda's opinion we saw in the Mishnah that until the Kohen Gadol is replaced, comes from the estate, from the inheritors. Reb Shimon was the other opinion. He says that it comes from the community. He says, Chak Olam. Says it's an everlasting statute. The word everlasting in Hebrew is olam, which also means that it comes from the community. Mishal olam, it comes from the world, which means it comes from the community. Then it goes on, it says kalal taktar, should take kula baktar. Kalal taktar, kalal means entirely. It's entirely burnt. That means that it's brought entirely and it's burnt. It means it's not done in half. Okay. Correct the Gemara. There's a question.
I love it in Yiddish.
It's better in Yiddish, yeah. And for the Gemara. V'hai kayin HaMashiach lachi asa. You're telling me that pasuk, telling me who quoted that? That was Rabbi Yehuda quoting. Rabbi Yehuda was saying that the inheritors are the ones that bring the minchas chabitin until there's a new one that's appointed, until the new kohen gadol is appointed. They quote from the pasuk, "Kohen HaMashiach tachtav mibanav yasa," say that it comes from the inheritors. It says, "Hi mibayilei." Look at the tiny. We need that pasuk for something else. It says the pasuk says, "Zek karban aron banav shekru b'Lashem b'yayim himashach." Say that's verse 13. This is the carbon of Aaron on the day that they're or his son and his sons on the day that they're anointed. Yachal yu Aaron banav makrivim carbon echad on the day that they were anointed. Is by the Shivas, not by the Shivas Meluim, but by Rosh Chodesh Nisan. On the day that they were anointed, maybe they would all bring one carbon. That they bring to Hashem. Yakrivu is the plural. That they bring. This teaches us Sha'aran b'fnei atzmai ubana b'fnei atzman. It means that they each bring their own carbon. Okay. Banav elu kain hedyotis. Banav b'fnei atzman. Banav means that they're kain hedyot, which means that they're not going to bring it every day. They just bring it on the first day. Yeah. No. This is a Kohen Gadol offering that's paid by the community according to one opinion if there's no Kohen Gadol. It is. It's from the Kohen Gadol's estate until there's a new one. Ataimer, you say that Kohenim Hedyatis. You say that this was brought when it says Bnei Aaron. You say that this is being brought at the first time when the Kohen Hedyot is inaugurated. Maybe this is only, it doesn't mean that Aaron Ubanav bring the Karban. Aaron brings it every day. Banav bring it on the day that they're inaugurated. Maybe it means that Aaron Ubanav means Aaron brings it every day. And Banav means the Kohen Gadol that comes after him also brings it every day. But where do we get that it comes by the inauguration? That we already know that the Kohen Gadol brings it every day. So what is that was verse 15. What does the pasuk before say when it says Zek Karban Aaron Banav? So Amani Mekayim Banav, when it says Zek Karban Aaron Banav, Elu Kohenim Hedyatis. This is telling me that the Kohen Hedyot also brings a Kohen Hedyot, means a regular Kohen, not a Kohen Gadol. He brings it when he's inaugurated. And so basically what we just learned from this is that the pasuk is teaching me a chiddush. Chiddush is that a regular Kohen Hedyot, a regular run-of-the-mill Kohen, not a Kohen Gadol, he also brings this karban on the day that he's inaugurated. And where do we get this from? From a pasuk, HaKohen HaMashiach Mibanav. We learn it from this pasuk. Problem is that we learn from that pasuk that if the Kohen Gadol dies and he doesn't have a new one, that we get it from the inheritors. So how do we have that limud? How do we have that when we have already used the pasuk to teach me that a regular Kohen also brings it? I don't know about the that was anointing oil. I don't know. That's not this.
Why can't we consider the other inheritance as well, since they inherit the Kohen from Aaron.
It's talking about a monetary inheritance. It's talking about the estate. His estate continues it until someone else takes over.
Saying it is money.
Yeah.
So it's not like Nachlas Yaakov.
Right. The Gemara answers that we're going to end up learning two things from this pasuk. One is that a regular kohen also brings it, and also that the inheritors of the kohen gadol bring it until the kohen gadol is replaced. Says, really, the pasuk is teaching me that the inheritors bring it. But imkein lichtav kra kaina Mashiach tachtav banav yasa would have said that the kohen Mashiach tachtav banav Kain Mashiach, the Kain Gadol, Tachtav Banav Yasa. In his place, the sons bring it. I mean, the estate brings it. My mi Banav from his sons is an extra mem there, which tells me that just one of the sons, the son that becomes a Kain Gadol after him, is going to bring it. And so therefore I already know that the Kain Gadol is going to bring it after him. So then the other pasuk is going to teach me that a regular Kain had also. So Shamat Mina Tarti. The extra mem teaches me that, first of all, that it comes from the inheritors, and also that when a new Kain Gadol is replaces old one, that he's the one that brings it from then on, which frees up the other pasuk to tell me that it's talking about the Kain Hedya. Kain Hedya brings it as well.
Well, so this is the situation where the Kohen Hedya becomes a new Kohen Gadol because there's no one else.
Well, that is happening as well, right? But
then there seems to be a contradiction because you said the Kohen Gadol brings it every single day, but yet this new Kohen who becomes the Kohen Gadol only brings it once.
No,
but if he's in
every single Kohen brings it on the first day that they come in to serve.
Right.
Not even if he's not a Kohen Gadol.
Right.
Then the Kohen Gadol brings it every day. And the Kohen Gadol passes away. So we're learning that the estate brings it until they appoint the new Kohen Gadol. That's the Chiddush. That's Rabbi Yehuda's view. Yeah? Yeah, they come from the estate until the new one.
Wait, when it comes from the state, who's being marked?
The Kayanim. It doesn't say who. There's no Kayan Gadol, so the Kayanim would bring it.
Why? What are they waiting for? Elections? November?
Yeah. They're trying to decide which one is going to be the next.
But the moment that new Kohen Gadol he
takes over and he does it.
And then he does it every day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Big boots to fit. Or big no shoes to fit.
Okay.
What kind of
the Gemara now asks, then we're going to go through, because we have a limit here for Rabbi Yehuda, we have a limit here for Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon, he says that you learn from Kalul Taktar, that pasuk Kalul Taktar, that tells me that you have to bring it entirely. If there's no Kayin Gadol, then you bring the entire thing. You don't bring it half in the morning, half in the afternoon. You bring it fully. You bring the whole thing. That's what we learned from Kalul Taktar. So the question is, but Rabbi Yehuda learned it from the word Isa, it. So the question is, Reb Shimon, Isa mayavadle. What does Reb Shimon do with the word Isa? It's not necessary. He already learns it from Kalul Taktar that it's entirely burned. That means that you bring the whole thing. So the Gemara answers me, we need that pasuk, we need Isa to teach me that let's say a Kohen Gadol passed away, and then they appointed another Kohen, a new Kohen Gadol. That he can't just step in and bring a half a Isaron. because first one, the Kohen Gadol brought half in the morning, the old Kohen Gadol. The new Kohen Gadol would just designate a half in the afternoon because the morning was already done. You know that you can't do that. You have to bring a full one. That's what we learned from Isa to bring it. So Kalil would tell me that when it's being brought by the community, according to Reb Shimon, it's brought entirely. The tepaklei
So that day, actually, there'll be 1.5 of this minchas.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, but we said that half of it is destroyed. It's not brought. It's burnt outside. Yeah. Problem is that we learned already that there was a word umachtzisa, which we had before.
And you can prepare a
Right, there were two halves, right? So it said over here umachtzisa be'erev. We had the vav of umachtzisa. Yeah, that and half of it. And half of it, that means you have to bring half of a whole one. So we already know that he has to bring half of it, that he has to dedicate, the new Kohen Gadol has to dedicate a whole one. So the Gemara says, Vav lei darish. He doesn't darshan from the umachtzisa. Reb Shimon doesn't do that. Reb Shimon doesn't darshan from the Vav, so he needs the word Isa. Okay, so we use the word Isa. Now we go to Reb Yehuda. Reb Yehuda that says that he learns from Isa. So that tells me, the Kohen HaMashiach Tachtav tells me that the inheritors bring the it comes from the estate. So what is he going to do with Reb Shimon's Chak Olam? Reb Yehuda Hai Chak Olam Hayavale. What does he do with the Chak Olam of Reb Shimon? So it says Chuka LaOlam Tehei. It says that it always applies, not only in the time of Aaron Abanav. Chak Olam tells me that it's an everlasting statute, everlasting ordinance that it always goes on. Now it says Kal Taktar Lamali, according to Rabbi Yehuda. What do I need Kal Taktar? Already learns it from Isa that it's entirely burnt. Gemara says that Mibayale look at the Tanya. It needs it for what it says in the Brayse. Ainli Yalel Yaina. I would only know that the Minchas Chavitin, Minchas Kayin Gadol, the Kal Taktar. I would think that only the Kayin Gadol's karban is Kal Taktar. Achtaina, Minchas Kain Hedyet, like Teyachal. There's a prohibition to eat. There's a rule that a mincha of a kayin is entirely burnt, and there's a rule that it's not eaten, which means the same thing. It's entirely burnt, it's not eaten. But I could have thought that by the kayin gadol, the mitzvah is that it should be entirely burnt. By the kayin hedyet, the rule is like teyachal that it shouldn't be eaten. How do you know that the prohibition of not eating it goes also on the kayin gadol, and the rule that it needs to be entirely burnt goes on the kayin hedyet as well? Talmud Leimar kalal l'gzeir Shabbat. It says kalal twice, and we do a comparison. Nemar kan kalal, v'nemar lahalan, and it says also by the minchas kayin, it says kalal. Ma kan kol taktar, just like over here, it says kol taktar. So also by the kayin hedyet, aflalan kol taktar. Now it goes back. Ma lahalan litin leisa say al lichilase. Just like by the kayin hedyet, it says that you don't let it eat it. There's a negative prohibition if he eats it. Afkan litin leisa say al lichilase. Also by the kayin gadol, there's a negative prohibition if he eats it. It's not just the positive command that he's supposed to burn it, but also the negative command of eating also applies there. Now the Gemara says, "V'savar Reb Shimon mishal tzibar." Shimon said that the community brings the sacrifice when the Kohen Gadol passed away and before the new one is appointed. So we say, is that a biblical law? because we said that we're learning it from the psukim. It says Vatanan. The problem is if you say that this is a biblical law, you have a Mishnah that says Amar Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon taught Shiva Dvarim Eskinu Bezdin L'Zeh Echad Mem. There's seven institutions that the Bezdin enacted, and this is one of them. L'Zeh Echad Mem. What is that one? The first one is that any animal that was found in Yerushalayim in a certain place, we consider it either an oila or a shlamim. There's laws about an animal that was lost and then you found an animal. Okay, then it goes on. It says another law is, we're going through the seven. An Ovid Kechavim, a non-Jew, that sent his sacrifice from a distant country. If he sent together with it the value of the libations that come along with the sacrifice, then you bring it. But let's say he only sent the main sacrifice, he didn't send along the libations. Then the community brings the libations for the sacrifice that was. This is like if you give a donation somewhere, they ask you, do you want to pay the credit card fee for the thing? So if you want, you pay that. Here he sends a carbon. He says, if you send the nesachim along, that's great. We'll use that. But if not, then we'll have to cover the nesachim. So it comes from the community. Let's say a convert passed away. There's no inheritors, and he left over a sacrifice. So we're going to bring the sacrifice. If he left over also in his estate, he left over the libations. So krevim mishaloi, then we bring it what he left over. If not, then the community will cover that. Tanai Bezdinu, and there's another institution of the Bezdin that Kohen Gadol shemes le'mina kain achetachtav say minchas krevim mishal tziva. That if the Kohen Gadol passes away, and they didn't appoint a new one yet, that they bring the sacrifice, the mincha, the offering, minchas chavitin from the community. Well, this is a Bezdin enactment. This is not a deraisa. We were quoting psukim before, thinking that all this is deraisa. We have a Mishnah clearly that says that it comes from the Bezdin. Amar Rabavo. Rabavo says Shnei Takanasayim, and there are actually two institutions. One is the deraisa miditzibur. We have a pasuk that says Chak Olam. That means that it comes from the community. Kivan the chassid the kamidchaka midachka, but then they saw kamidachka lishka. Saw that it was a strain on the community because they wouldn't anoint the Kohen Gadol right away, and the reason for the delay was because Kohen Gadol would they wanted the position, but also the Kohen Gadol would die if he wasn't eligible, and they would fight over it and who would get it and different things. So it was complex. There was a money. If you became the Kohen Gadol, you were also in charge of the temple fund. But there was money involved, so they would fight over it. Right. So, but they saw this was becoming a strain on the community. So what did they do? Takino the ligvei miyarshim. They instituted that the inheritors should have to pay for this. That would be an incentive to have them make a decision quickly. But given the chazad the kapashiba. But then they saw that the inheritors were not paying. They weren't paying up. So ukma daraisa. Then they went back to the daraisa. So really, we have a daraisa that it comes from the inheritors. No, we have a daraisa that it comes from the community. This is Reb Shimon, right? We have a daraisa that it says chakam, it comes from the community. But it was a strain on the community, so the rabbis enacted that it comes from the inheritors, and then they saw that the inheritors weren't doing it, so the rabbis reenacted the daraisa, and that's why we have a Mishnah that says that it came from a takan of the Bezdin, even though we have a Torah law for it, right? So that's how it reconciles that contradiction.
How can the Rabbanan make a takana in lieu of the daraisa? This is very weird situation. Never.
They did that.
They do that.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's ace lassos kind of thing?
No, the rabbis have power to do these type of things. They could, you don't blow the shofar on Shabbos type of thing. You shake lulav on, even though in the Torah, but according to the Torah, you would blow the shofar on Shabbos. Oh, why are you going to carry it? So the rabbis step in and say, no, that's not going to be. There's other examples, but you don't wear tefillin at night, even though in the Torah maybe you do wear it at night.
Other situations when the person is not doing Shabbos.
What is that?
There's several situations when the person is not doing Shabbos. Part of it. It's usually by the derisa system.
That I'm not sure. I'd have to look at the Gemaras to see if that is based on the derisa or I'm not sure. Dafim is not the Rambam. Okay. Another thing that we learned in the Mishnah was another takana that in that Mishnah we were quoting that there were 7. I don't know how many we got through. We got through 3 or 4. Another one is Valpara Shleyim Moilim Be'efra. Someone has benefit from the para aduma, the red heifer. So personal benefit from something that's consecrated could be a prohibition of me'ilah. So they made an institution that it's not. Gemara says that the Raisi, this should be a Torah law. The Tanya, it's quoted in the Brisa. The Brisa quotes a pasuk. It says Chatasi, Malamit Shemaylimba. This teaches us that there's me'ilah by the paraduma because it's called the chatas. And then it says chatas that it is a chatas. Ba mayalin. There's only me'ilah in the actual para. You make use of the paraduma itself, but be'efra ain't mayalin. We have a diak from the pasuk. It says chatas it is a chatas, but not the ashes. Which means that this comes from the Torah. It's not a takana of Bezdin. So Rav Ashi, we have the same question that we had before. We have on this new law, right? Rav Ashi says, "State takanas have really." There were 2 institutions. We're going to answer it the way we answered the last one. It says midday raisa. You're right. Ba mayalim befrein mayalim. Really, there's only me'ilah in the actual sacrifice, but not in the ashes. But given the chazu, the kamazalzli bava ka'abdi minei. L'makasan. So people were starting to use it as a medicine for their wounds. If someone had a wound, they would say, "Oh, do I have medicine? I have not mikvah water. I have paraduma water, red heifer ashes. So this is really good. You put it on. Works like honey on a thing." Picking something that Dr. Stein will get annoyed with. Okay, so Das Rebbe Me'ilah. So they said that no, there's Me'ilah even in the ashes as well. They wanted people to stop doing that. But keeping the chazah, the kaparshim misafik azos, but then they saw that, oh my gosh, there's Me'ilah in this. You don't want to come close to this. So then these people weren't sprinkling the water when they were tamei. So then ukma daraisa, they went back to make it a daraisa. So there was another takana that puts it back on the daraisa, exactly the way we answered before. That it's a Torah law, but because of an enactment that they made that got messed up, so then they reenacted the daraisa. That's what it says. It's not best, and it was both of them. It reconciles this.
Just because you mentioned that, I don't know. Did I tell you my dog almost died on Purim?
No. And ate chocolate.
It got into a chocolate basket on the table. Came out all the chocolate. Ended up vomiting. $700 later in the day in the vet hospital. Survived. I mean, it's really dangerous for people who think it's not. Do not let your dog get near chocolate.
But the dog doesn't know how dangerous it is. It eats it, but it doesn't know.
Do we know how dangerous the things are we do?
Okay.
No.
Fine. I just thought the dogs know.
Kept on eating and eating. No, the danger. First of all, vomited half the night. and then in the morning, then it gets tachycardic and can run into arrhythmias. And my dog has a little heart murmur, so it's more, so they have to keep it on a monitor. And from the bottom, it gets dehydrated, so they have to give it fluids. I mean, it was very serious. Keep chocolate away from your dogs.
Is there insurance for dogs?
Yeah.
You get like medical insurance?
Yeah, but it costs almost as much as our insurance, so I don't have.
And it won't cover that.
Oh, you get the high deductibles.
Start in the price. Okay, you learn a lot in the daf.
The dog for that.
That's what I said.
Tanurabanan, par halam davar shel tzibur sirav. It's come betchila magvin lem. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. So, par halam davar shel tzibur was when the community relied on a psak of the Bezdin, and they ended up, which a mistaken psak of the Bezdin, they ended up all, or the majority of the community did a sin that would be b'shaygig chatas, or whatever. So they have to bring this special sacrifice. And also, Siri Avedis Kavim is a similar concept. The Bezdin said that a certain type of Avodah Zarah it could be served in a certain way, and it turns out that was a mistake. So it's just one is a par and one is a sar. So originally they would collect it from each person. It was done by collection. Everyone send in your dollar to cover the animal. And in Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, that's what Rabbi Yehuda says. In other words, not that it came from the community fund. Reb Shimon Aimer, Mitrumas Halishka came by. Reb Shimon says no, that it came from the Trumas Halishka. It came from, everyone gave a half a shekel. There's money over there. The thing will take it out of the community. But Tanya Yepcha, the Gemara asks, well, we have a brisa that says exactly the opposite. The Rabbi Yehuda says it comes from the Trumas Halishka, and Reb Shimon says it comes from the collection. So it says, well, Haiminayo Achrita. Which one is the later version? If we can figure out the later version, then we'll know which one to accept. So Amrua, the halacha would be like Rabbi Yehuda. We want to know which one is Rabbi Yehuda's later version. Amrua Rabbanan Kamei de Ravashi. He said this in front of Ravashi. They said, Lema Kamaisa Achrita. Let's say the first one that we mentioned is the later version, the Tanur Rabbanan, that says that Rabbi Yehuda holds it comes from a collection. And Reb Shimon says it comes from the Trumas Halishka. The Shamina Leila Reb Shimon, because we know that Reb Shimon says that the Chayesh Lipshia. Reb Shimon is concerned about negligence. How do we know that? Because if you go back to the Gemara that we just had, he said that who brings the Chavitin when the Kohen Gadol dies before there's a new one that's inaugurated. We said that comes from the community. We said that, but the community, it comes from the community. But it became, how did we interpret it? We said that it became difficult on the community. So we put it on the inheritors. Then the inheritors were negligent about it. So we put it back on the community. So now Rabbi Shimon was concerned that the inheritors would be negligent. So what would that tell me now? That Rabbi Shimon would hold that the community may be negligent, and so therefore we'll collect it straight from the Trumas Halishka, which is what Rabbi Shimon says in that first version. The Gemara says, Amalu Ravashi. Ravashi says back to them that you think that you found a Reb Shimon L'Shitasei that we're concerned about negligence by the Chavitika and Gadol, concerned about negligence by the Par Halam Davar. And so it says, 1 second. Even if you say exactly the opposite, that Reb Shimon holds that that the collection is done from everyone and not from the community, not from the Trumas Halishka. Reb Shimon Lepshia, b'milsa d'lesbi kapara b'gavei. That was when was Reb Shimon concerned about that there was going to be negligence? That's by an offering that doesn't come along with an atonement, which is like the Minchas Chavitin. Like, what's the point of it? No one gets anything from it. There's no atonement that comes along with it, right? It's an offering to Hashem, but no one gets it. It doesn't serve the people. However, milsa d'lesbi kapara b'gavei. But when it comes to a benefit that the people get, which is a kapara, there's an atonement, So lechayish Reb Shimon lepshia. How do you know Reb Shimon would be chayish lepshia? Maybe Reb Shimon really holds in this case that you collect from the community, and we're not concerned that the community is going to be negligent because they're going to get their benefits from it. My havi Allah. So we don't know which one was said later.
They've been concerned about like the temple.
Maybe here was just one sacrifice that they would bring because of this community
I
sin.
was thinking about that it went back to they're not paying for the communities paying for it, so they might not be so
It was
incentivized.
like tax money. It was from the tax money.
Like today we see they could print unlimited. I don't think that they did that recently.
Question is how to allocate the funds.
We learned a long time ago, I think that when they used to give machzis a shekel, you had the odors.
Yeah.
When it was, so when they would use this from the Trumas Elishka, did they like take from the old funds as opposed to new funds and make any difference?
I'm not sure exactly which pile. There were like 3 piles,
Yeah.
and in each pile there were 3 things.
Yeah, because I'm
sure
wondering,
exactly
they say, we haven't even touched the reserve funds, so
Right.
why don't we go take from that?
Right. My havi Allah. What's the end of it here? What's Reb Shimon's actual opinion? What's Reb Yehuda's actual opinion? Because we have a contradictory brises. Amalei Rabba Zuti l'Ravashi. Rabba the small says to Ravashi, Tashma, Rabbi Small. Tashma, so come and listen to the time of starting the brisa. It says it's carbon ilach melish hariach nichachi tishmalak liv mayada by the carbon tamid. It says that it's a carbon, the meal, burnt meal to Hashem. It's a sweet smell. Should guard to bring it in its time. So it says 3 times over here. It says karbani lachmi liishai. All of those mean that it's a sacrifice. The rabbi is parham davar shel tzibar. Siri avodas kechavim. Sheba mitchumas alishka. Divrei Shimon. It's coming to tell me that there are other things that also come, just like the carbon tamid, which comes from the community fund. Also, there's another 2 sacrifices that come from the community fund. So we have a brisa that says that Reb Shimon holds that it comes from the community fund, which means that Reb Yehuda is the one that holds that it comes from the collection. Okay. Now we go back to discuss what we said in the Mishnah. It says, when we were bringing this offering, the Minchas Chavitin, in the interim, before the next Kohen Gadol was instated, so we didn't bring it half, we brought it whole. Okay? Amar B'chia Barabba, Boy Rabbi Yechanan. What we were learning before was that yesterday we learned that if you brought in a new Kohen Gadol, so he brought it whole, but only half of it was used. Now we're not saying that. Now we're saying we don't have a Kohen Gadol. You're bringing it whole. You're bringing the whole thing. You're not dividing it in half. It's not half in the morning. You bring the whole thing. Amar B'chia Barabba, Boy Rabbi Yechanan. B'chia Barabba is a student of Rabbi Yechanan. He says, Rabbi Yechanan had the following question. When it says that you bring it whole, what does that mean? Does it mean Shlema Shachris or Shlema Ben Arbayim? Dilma Shlema Shachris or Betela Ben Arbayim? Doesn't mean that you bring it whole in the morning and whole in the afternoon. It doesn't mean that you bring it whole once a day. And then it covers the afternoon. Just bring the whole thing in the morning. Amar Rabba. So that's Rabbi Yechanan's question. Rabba says, to answer the question, he says, Tashema, come and listen, I'll give you an answer. The Shmini Chavitin. In the Mishnah in Tamid, it lists out all the Kayanim that were involved in the sacrifice. You got the 13, I think. It says this one brought the head and the thing, and the next Kayan, was like a not a, what do they call it? Not a conveyor. They have like a
rotation.
What is it?
A rotation.
No, it's not a rotation. They have this line of assembly line. The assembly line. So number 8 in the assembly line in the morning doing the sacrifices. Number 8 would hold the chavitin of the Kohen Gadol. That's what he was bringing up to be burnt. Imisa, the betela ben arbayim. If this would tell me that there were times in between Kohanim Gedolim that you bring the whole thing and you don't bring it in the afternoon, So then you bring the whole thing in the morning. And Imi said the B'Tela Ben Arbaim, if we would think that you only bring it in the morning and not in the afternoon, Shmini, the Chavitin. It's possible that we won't have an eighth person holding the Chavitin. Why? Echidami, what would the case be? The Meis Kayan Gadol, the Kayan Gadol passed away, and V'leiminach Tachtav, and they didn't appoint a new one in the afternoon, and you would only have you would be missing one of the Kayanim Gedalim in the assembly. Not one of the Kayanim Gedalim, missing because he passed away. You're missing one of the people in the assembly line. You don't have number 8. So it must be that you would bring it in the afternoon as well. What do you mean, cleaning and lighting? Yeah, but no. Here we're talking about the carbon tamid as an assembly line. It's brought in the morning and then it's brought again in the afternoon. So together with that assembly line is also the chavitin kain gadol, which is brought in the morning and the afternoon. Number 8 of the assembly line was the chavitin kain gadol. If there's going to be a time when you only bring it in the morning, you don't bring it in the afternoon, if one of the options of Rabbi Yechanan's question, so then we're going to be missing number 8. So it must be that you bring in the afternoon as well. Amru Rabbanan, this was Rava's teretz. Amru Rabbanan Kamei Rabbi Yirmiyah. They said in front of Rabbi Yirmiyah. Amar, Rabbi Yirmiyah says, Babloi Tipshoy. This is a famous comment that Rabbi Yirmiyah likes to make. He came from Eretz Yisrael, and he came from Bavel, and he wasn't so fond of the Babylonians that were his old yeshiva. About halfway down on Nun Beis. Nun Beis Amid Aleph. A little over halfway. It says, Babloi Tipshoy. Foolish Babylonians. Mishum di Yasib Asu de Chashecha Mishmaitin de Mechashchan. Because they live in the dark place, that's why they say these dark teachings. It says according to what Rav is saying, I have kashas on that. It doesn't fit. Ella Diktani, according to this, you have another question. It says Shvi Basailas. It says that the 7th Kayan was holding the flower that came along with the carbon talmud. Part of the Nesachim was also flour. She bayayin. The 9th one was with the wine. Achinami d'leibatli. You want to tell me that these are never neglected? Because it says minchas v'neskayim. It says that minchasam v'neskayim, the mincha and the libations, balayla, minchasam v'neskayim, afil lamach, that sometimes you can bring it tomorrow. So 1 second. In the assembly line, what is number 7 and what's number 9 going to do if you're bringing it tomorrow? It says you didn't have to bring it exactly that day. Ella, de'i like katani. De'i is in quotation. De'i, that if it happened, we're not talking about if it happened, we're talking about the standard, the default. Talking about the default. So the default. So hachanami, de'i like katani, we're not talking about there's going to be a case when it's not going to happen. We're only talking about the default. We're not talking about, of course, there's going to be cases when you're not going to have the number 8. It's not going to be, when the Kohen Gadol passed away, you don't have number 8. But this Mishnah that tells me the 13 Kayanim that were in that assembly line, that wasn't telling me every possible scenario. Adrua Kamei de Rava. So, Yirmiyah's comment goes back to Rava. Amar, he says, Mibishusin Amri Kamayo. You only tell Rabbi Yirmiyah the shameful statements that we have. Mitivusin Layamri Kamayo. You don't tell him the nice statements that we have. And that's why this is what he's saying. You gave him the wrong impression. It's usually how news works. You only hear the negative things. So Hadar Amar Rava, but then Rava actually said Haninami Tivusinu, that actually this statement is also correct. This is even one of our positive statements. Amar Kra, because the pasuk says Seilas Mincha Tamed Arehi Lach Minchas Tmidin. It says Seilas Mincha Tamed in the pasuk. It says by the Minchas Chavitin in 6:13 in Vayikra. It said over there. It says that if it compares it to the Tamed, just like the Tamed never stops, so too the Chavitin never stop. So, which means that you're going to bring it in the afternoon as well, like that proof that we had that is brought in the morning and afternoon. Rava says we actually have a pasuk that supports that. My Havi Allah, is Rava correct or not, or is Rabbi Yirmiyah correct? Rav Nachman Yitzchak. Rav Nachman Yitzchak says Tashema. Come and listen to Tanya. Shleima Shachar, Shleima Ben Arbayim. It proves that Rabbi was correct. It is brought in the morning, it's brought in the afternoon. We answer Rabbi Yechanan's question. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yechanan. Pligi ba Abba Yossi ben Destai b'Rabbanan. Rabbi Yechanan says there's a machlekes between Abba Yossi ben Destai and the Rabbanan. Abba Yossi ben Destai, Rabbi Yossi ben Destai says that ma'afrish lashnei kamatzim shalavayna. Paymet shachas, paymet ben arbayim. So the Minchas Chavitin had Levina. Yesterday we were discussing if it had Levina. Minchas Chavitin, the Kohen Gadol sacrifice does have Levina. The only thing, the interesting thing is that you bring one Isaran and you divide it in half. Half is in the morning, half is in the afternoon. In a regular scenario, Kohen Gadol brings half in the morning, half in the afternoon. Now, you're also supposed to bring Levina. So how much Levina do you bring? Do you bring half a kaimetz in the morning, half a kaimetz in the afternoon? Or do you bring a full kaimetz in the morning and a full kaimetz in the afternoon? So Abba Yossi ben Dustai says they have to bring two. One in the morning, kaimetz shachas, kaimetz ben arbaim. Rabbanan Amri, mafresh kaimetz echad, chatzi kaimetz shachas, chatzi kaimetz ben arbaim. The Rabbanan say no, that you bring half a kaimetz in the morning, half in the afternoon. What's the machlekes over here? Abba Yossi ben Dustai saver, layaskara and chatzi kaimetz tekar. Whoever heard of half a kaimetz? You ever heard of half a kaimetz? You never do a half a kaimetz. It has to be that you're doing a full kaimetz. Rabbanan Savri, Rabbanan hold, layashkan isarin the b'ishnei kamatzim. We never hear that you need two kaimetz for one isarin. The isarin was divided in half of the money. You have two kaimetz for one isarin. So therefore they hold that it's half. Okay, so it's a classic machlekes. Boy Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Yechanan has a question.
What does half kaimetz mean?
You do a scoop, yeah.
But you can't do that.
That's Rabbi Yossi ben Dustai's opinion. You're not doing half a kmitza. You're doing the kmitza, and you're offering half of it in the morning and half of it in the afternoon. Yeah. Rabbi Yechanan, if the Kohen Gadol passed away and they didn't appoint the new Kohen Gadol yet, we learned that you bring the full minchas chavitin, right? You don't bring half of it. Well, l'Rabbanan, according to the Rabbanan that say that you bring half a kaimetz, huchpala levainasai, aylai. When you appoint a new Kohen Gadol, we said that he has to bring a full. The new Kohen Gadol has to bring in the afternoon the full minchas chavitin. No, actually, we said that he only brings half. Are we talking about the new Kohen Gadol, or are we talking about when no one was appointed yet? Oh, the v'loi minachar. No one was appointed yet. So it's not. There's no new Kohen Gadol. There was no one appointed yet. So then you bring the full mincha. You bring the full isarin. So the question now is, when you bring the full isarin, do you bring the full kaimetz as well? Huchbala levainasai. Do you bring the full kaimetz or not? So mi amrina and mitach shuchbala saltai. Do we say because we doubled the flour? Because in the morning you only brought half an isarin, and now you bring a whole isarin. So huchbala levainasai. Idilma mai the gali. Or maybe what the pasuk taught us. I saw. Or, what was the other one? I saw not chakaylam. We learned kolel. The kolel that has to be whole. Maybe we know that it has to be whole, but not the levina. Dilma, my gali, my delay gali. So what wasn't told to us, we don't double. Now we go on. We say v'shemen. When it comes to the oil, bein la b'yosi ben destai, bein la rabbanon. Rabbi Yossi ben destai and the rabbanon had a discussion about the levina, but both of them, regarding the oil, what's going to be with the oil? We said before that the Kohen Gadol brings 3 lug. We had a machlekes about this yesterday. Is it 3 lug or 1 lug? We said that if it's 3 lug, so that would mean that 1.5 was brought in the morning and 1.5 was brought in the afternoon. But now, when you're bringing it in the afternoon, do you actually bring the full 3 lug, or do you just bring 1.5? Because here we're talking about when the Kohen Gadol wasn't replaced yet, and you have to bring the whole amount. Amar Rava. Rava says Tashema. Come and listen, I'll bring you a proof. It says we have a Mishnah that says Chamisha Kamatzim. There's 5 types of kaimetz. Now, what Rava says is Vim Isa, if there was another kaimetz where you would have the kaimetz levina of the chavitin wasn't counted amongst those. The reason is because it was only brought half. That Mishnah that says the 5 kaimetz was only discussing full kaimetz. It wasn't discussing half a kaimetz. Since the chavitin of the kain gadol was always brought half, so now what Rav is saying is that if there were times when it was brought whole, because we didn't appoint a new kain gadol and you would have to bring the whole, you would bring it whole, then there would be more than 5. There would be, what did I say, 7? Shiva. Why 7? Why not 6?
Translation things.
What's this?
There's 2 kamatzim of Lavona that accompany the chavitin. 1 kametz of Lavona in the morning and 1 in the afternoon.
Oh, okay. Okay. It's saying 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. That's what it means 7. Because until you got the new kain gadol, so you would bring in 1 in the morning. Okay. So the Gemara answers, like we said before when Rava said this, D'i Blake Tani. Wasn't talking about cases of strange scenarios. We're talking about the default. What's typical? There's only 5. Yosef Rav Papa become a lashmaita. Rav Papa was sitting and he said over this teaching that and Rav Papa is a student of Rava, so he's saying this over. Amalei Rav Yosef Bar Shamil Rav Papa. B'mayla kaimetz b'chutz D'i havi yuktani. 1 second. If you look at that Mishnah, one of the cases in that Mishnah says that if someone takes a kaimetz and offers it outside, so you do have cases of D'i, of different scenarios, not the default. The Ketani, and it teaches that. So l'chayra, that should be a raya that if you want to have every scenario, then another scenario would have been when the Kohen Gadol passed away, and you didn't list that. So obviously, that's also brought in half, not whole. My Havi Allah, what's the conclusion over here? So Amar Rav Nachman by Yitzchak Tashim, Rav Nachman Yitzchak says, come and listen. The Tanya, you have a brisa. Kohen Gadol shemeis v'leimina achetachtav. The Kohen Gadol passed away, and they didn't appoint a new Kohen. So what do we have to do? We have to bring the chavitin in his right. We have to bring it until we get a new one. Shleima shachar shleima ben arbayim. Okay, this also answers Rabbi Yechanan's other question. You bring it in the morning, you bring it in the afternoon entirely. You separate 2 kaimetz, 1 for the morning, 1 for the afternoon. And also the oil. Oh, the oil, interesting. That's logamech to shachris, logamech to ben arbayim. That we divide in half. The oil we divide in half. Mani, who could be the author of this brisa? It says, Ilay Rabbanon, if you say it's the Rabbanon, then the Rabbanon that argued with Abi Yosef ben Destoi. Abi Yosef ben Destoi said that you have 2 kamatzim. The Rabbanon said you only have a half a kaimetz, right? A half in the morning, half in the... If it's the Rabbanon, Maishna Lavaina de Hochbala, Maishna Sham de Hochbala. So 1 second. You were ready to give 2 kaimetz. According to the Rabbanon, you're going to do a kaimetz in the morning, kaimetz in the afternoon. Why didn't you also double the oil? Because it was only supposed to be half a kaimetz, but we see that we're doubling it. Just double the oil. Ella, so we have to say Abi Yosef ben Destoi. Abi Yosef ben Destoi said, you always need 2 kaimetz, so we're not doubling anything. Okay. And we're talking about that the levaina was not doubled. And then also the oil isn't doubled. Okay, so we're talking about this Abi Yosef ben Destoi. And since the oil isn't doubled, now because that's what we just determined, because it's Abi Yosef ben Destoi, and we're talking about that we're not doubling anything. So therefore, if we go back to the Rabbanon, then we would say Lavaina v'shamna l'Rabbanan nami lehochbelu. Back in the Rabbanon, we also won't double the Lavaina and the Shemen, which would mean, according to the Rabbanon, we would say that the Levina would only be half a kaimetz. You won't double it. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yechanan halacha Rabbi Yosef ben Destoi. Rabbi Yechanan says the halacha is like Rabbi Yosef ben Destoi that says that you bring a full kaimetz of the Levina in the morning, a full kaimetz in the afternoon. Mi Amar Rabbi Yechanan hachi. Rabbi Yechanan really says this. Amar Rabbi Yechanan halacha Stam Mishnah. Rabbi Yechanan says halacha like the Stam Mishnah. Utanan chamisha kamatzernein. Says there's 5, and 5 we left out according to Rabbi Yosef ben Destoi. You should have had 6 or maybe 7 because the one for the morning, one for the afternoon of the chavitin, because that's a full kaimetz. We said that you didn't put it in there because it was, we weren't lifting half kaimetz. When it says Amiroyin in Avali Badir Rabbi Yechanan, there's a machlekes Amiroyin what Rabbi Yechanan held. One held that it says halachic stam mishnah. The other Amira said that Rabbi Yechanan held that it's halachas like Rabbi Yosef ben Destoi that you bring a full kaimetz. Okay. Hadran Allah Chatchelas Kayach. Up to the 5th parak.
Totally confused. He'd make a lousy gambler.